Hi, I'm Mike Beliveau, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Starr and Bullock Sharps cartridge forming system. This is for the 1859 caliber Sharps, makes paper cartridges. And if you're familiar with the name Starr and Bullock, you're probably either a student of Old West history or a fan of the old HBO series Deadwood, or possibly both. Okay, so I don't have to answer, like 50 comments on this. I promise I will explain the Band-Aid on my face at the very end of the video. So just hang in there and all will be revealed. That HBO series followed the highly fictionalized life of Seth Bullock of Deadwood, South Dakota. And I got to tell you that the real Seth Bullock's life was every bit as exciting as the Seth Bullock played by Timothy Oliphant on the HBO series. Bullock and his partner, Solomon Starr, left Helena, Montana, and went to the mining camp of Deadwood, South Dakota in 1876. And they opened up a mercantile business, among other things, and became quite famous in South Dakota as businessmen and as politicians. They had very successful careers. But Seth Bullock was also the first sheriff of Deadwood, South Dakota. He was a friend of Teddy Roosevelt's. He served in Grigsby's Cowboy Regiment, which is like the Rough Riders. It was another outfit formed of Westerners, volunteer outfit that fought in the Spanish-American War. He became the U.S. Marshal for South Dakota, served for 10 years. And had quite a life. So, seeing the Starr and Bullock Hardware Company logo really got my attention. But we're not here to talk about Deadwood, as much as I would love to. And by the way, if you have not seen that series, I highly recommend it. I loved it. But when I go back and rewatch it, I always just watch the first 4 episodes. And those are the ones that have Keith Carradine playing Wild Bill Hickok, and they are excellent. So if you have a chance to stream that or have a DVD of it, watch those first 4 episodes and you'll love them. But now let's talk about that cartridge system again. So the question is, how well do they work? And I'm going to take you to the answer in the back of the book right now and just show you how it works. Hi, I'm Mike Beliveau, and I'm back here at the West Shore Sportsmen's Association. And I've got my 1859 rifle. I'm here to try to sight it in. But we're also going to see how these cartridges we just made with the Starr and Bullock hardware store system, how they work. So let's see if they go off. Alright, well, that's the first of the Starr and Bullock cartridges. Went off first time. They went off every time. Everything was quite good. So let me show you how they're made. And I'm going to tell you right up front that I have made some adjustments to the way the Starr and Bullock folks make their cartridges. And I'm going to explain what I do and why. And then I'll give you my overall impressions of them. So let's show you what's in the kit. The Starr and Bullock Deluxe Kit, which is what I have, comes with everything you see here. There's a paper punch to make the circles for the base. There's glue, there's forming blocks, mandrel, funnel, powder measure, cigarette papers for the base, curling papers for the body, and a ton of bullet lube. So you've got everything you need here to make paper cartridges. Well, here's the Starr and Bullock kit. And I think it's pretty well made. And you might wonder, well, I already know how to make cartridges. What's the point of the kit, right? Because you've seen me make them with these dowels as formers that I made myself for a few cents, so why spend the money on a kit? And the answer to that is really pretty simple. Not everybody wants to mess around with making that stuff, and it requires you to have precise calipers, and there's a fair amount of trial and error. So these guys have made a kit that kind of takes the guesswork out of it. and that's a good thing. I remember when all cartridge kits, you either had to make the formers yourself, or there are a couple of craftsmen who made them laboriously out of wood. Cliff Manley comes to mind for revolver cartridges, and Balzath Namath, better known as Cap and Ball on YouTube. He has formers made of wood that are beautiful. But with the advent of 3D printing, a lot of smart guys have been making formers. There are many more of them on the market now. And this company, Star and Bullock Hardware, they make a variety of cartridge systems for Cap and Ball revolvers, 36, 44s, Rugers. They've got the whole gamut. And what they did basically is they converted the revolver cartridge system to make Sharps cartridges. So it's kind of different from the way that I've been making them. So the cartridges I've been making with my homemade equipment look like this. And they differ in a couple of ways from the kind of cartridges that we can make with the Star and Bullock hardware system. First of all, the cartridge is parallel sided, right? It's a cylinder. And the end cap is actually glued in from the inside. And those are the main differences right there. So if we look at the Star and Bullock system, what we have is a cartridge that actually tapers, like a handgun cartridge tapers. And the end cap is glued on the outside the same way a revolver cartridge is. And that works okay, particularly because it does taper a bit. Right, so it all works out. Now, the originals were made more like this. But there is some real convenience in doing these. Now, I like this system, but it's not foolproof. And I'm going to show you what the major problem with this system is. And then we're going to show you the way I load them using this equipment, because I do like it. So let's take a look at what the major problem is. Okay, so let me start off by showing you this. This is my regular parallel-sided Sharps cartridge made on, forming sticks that I make myself. So let's chamber this thing. Alright, so you can see that it fills up the chamber completely, but I can close the breech block without cutting anything, and the back paper is right up against the edge of the breech block. Now, this is a Star and Bullock hardware company cartridge. This is made on Star and Bullock's kit, exactly in accordance with the directions on their video. Alright, so let's chamber this. Okay, I've got a good 1/4 of an inch too deep with that cartridge. Alright, so we can close the breech block. The chamber's fine. You might think, well, too short's better than too long, but it's really not, because look at how much room we've got to jump to get from the flash channel in the breech block, right, to the back of that cartridge. That's just not good. Alright, now this is another cartridge made on the Star and Bullock Hardware Company kit. And this is one that I've made some adjustments to the size of the case. Now let's see how this one goes. Once again, right there. Okay, so the problem is there are a number of different manufacturers of 1859 Sharps replicas. There's Army Sport, Chiappa, Garrett made some, IAB made some, and they all seem to have different lengths of chamber. So as you can see, this Pedersoli chamber is pretty long. Now, I'm guessing that the Star and Bullock Hardware Company kit was made to fit an IAB, probably, maybe a Chiappa, which has a bit of a shorter chamber. Garrett's, I know, have a shorter chamber if you find one of those. So, the mandrel, right, this former is really too short by a little bit, but you can still work with it, and it'll do just fine. But you have to realize that you're probably going to have to determine your chamber length, like I said in the first video, and then make some dummy cartridges and fine-tune them until you've got the right size for your paper. Just cutting off this length of piece of paper, as they do on the Star and Bullock video, is going to make you too short a cartridge. So let me show you how I make them on this equipment. So in my earlier video on making Sharps cartridges using my homemade equipment, I showed you how to measure the chamber to get the depth of it, and that's something you should do before you try to use this system, okay? Because the main weakness of the system, as we've seen, is that by using this system, and the way you would use it is like this. You would cut off a piece of paper for your casing that's exactly the length of your former, and then you would glue that up, right? Well, as I just showed you, if you do that, you're going to end up, in some cases, with a cartridge that is going to be too short, a lot too short, particularly in a Pedersoli. Some other guns, IAB, maybe it'll be right on. I don't know, but you should still measure your chamber to see. So I show you how to do that. I'm not going to do it again. But once you've done that, you can make up a template for cutting out papers. Right? So mine is 2 7/16 inches wide and 1 5/8 inches high. Right? So that's what it takes to get a cartridge that fits. So once you've done that, you can cut a bunch of them up. Now what Star and Bullock give you for making the body of the cartridge are these. These are hair curling papers, end papers as they're called sometimes. Okay? So it is this. I use these for handgun cartridges sometimes. Same as this. This is all it is. They just pulled them out of the box and they packaged them in there. And they'll tell you in the video where to get them. So that makes up the body of the cartridge, and it's okay. Like I said, just okay. So this is one made using those curling end papers, and it stands up, right? But it's a little flimsy. I actually prefer to use this tracing paper. And the reason I do is because it is a little bit more robust. So this will stand up to more handling. Because the real problem with this, and we think of these, maybe if you've made revolver cartridges, you might think of them as being very similar, and they are. But the problem is that's a 500 grain bullet, and it puts a lot of pressure on the material. Okay, so those curling papers, they'll work, but I think they are marginal, and that's why I prefer to use the tracing paper, which I think gives you a better cut. Now they use cigarette rolling papers, Bullock and Star and Bullock does, as their end paper, and you might wonder why they don't use the same paper they're using for the body. And the reason is because even though I find this a little bit flimsy for the body, it is too thick to use for the base. And they know that as well as I do, and that's why they're using these cigarette rolling papers. Now what I use is tissue paper for mine, but these will work fine. And I have no problem with making up cartridges with these. But when they're used up, I'll probably just use my tissue paper because I got a bazillion miles with that. So, as part of the deluxe kit, you get a paper puncher. So I usually take 3 or 4 of these guys, fold them in half, and put them inside the punch. Get them seated all the way down, and just punch them out. All right, so there we go. So that goes pretty fast. These are 1-inch bases. I actually prefer 1 1/8, which I think works perfectly. It's best size. But 1 inch works just fine, and we're going to roll with it. Okay, so how do I do this? Well, it's very similar to what they do, except, of course, I am using a deeper cartridge. So this is based on my template. Cut it out. I take a glue stick, which they provide in this kit. Put some glue on it. And I'm going to glue it to the former. Now, the key is to get the edge of the paper aligned with the bottom of the former. Okay? We want to keep that relationship because it does have a taper to it. Alright? So, once we got that wrapped, I'm going to take the glue. I'm going to go around the bottom a little bit. I'm going to put down a nice bead of glue. Okay, now I'm going to get a bottom. I'll tell you, I love for these precision tweezers because these papers, all of them, are difficult to work with and they're delicate. And I find that handling them with these tweezers is easier and safer than using my big fat fingers on them. So, alright, so now I've got a base and I've got the former turned, there you go, the former's turned upside down, right? So sharp says upside down. Now line a base up with the hole and press it in. And that actually crimps your base down. All right, and we've got our cartridge case totally formed. Now the smart thing is to make up a bunch of those and then move to the next step, which one of these days I'm going to figure out the perfect arc to make these just like we do with handgun cartridges, so everything is even. But I'm going to take one that I've already made. I'm going to turn my former right side up, and I'm going to tuck it in there. Very simple. Okay, now here's where I once again differ. Star and Bullock give you this lovely dipper for powder, right? So you can dip it in. Just dip it in your powder, level it off, and pour it into the cartridge using the handy funnel they give you in the kit. And that would be fine. Except that dipper throws a 75 grain charge of powder, which is heavier than you ought to have. I mean, there's no reason you can't do it, but you don't need that much. The service load was 65 grains of powder. Most North-South Skirmish Association guys actually only shoot about 40 to 45 grains of powder, but I'm going to do 65. So I'm going to use a 2.2 cc scoop. I'm going to throw 2 of these in, and that'll get me to just under 65 grains. And also, if you use this because we're using a longer case, you actually have to put in more powder than this. So you're going to have about an 80 grain charge of powder if you just use powder. So, okay. So that's our powder charge, but pretty obviously I got a lot of room in there, more room than I have heel on the bullet. And just a word to the wise, this is an Error's Gone Richmond Laboratories Sharps bullet, right? It's from their mold. And this is the kind of bullet you need to make this kind of cartridge. If you're using a Sharps Christmas tree bullet or a ringtail bullet, you make the cartridges a completely different way. And I'll probably do some of those for you in the future. But in the meantime, we're working with this, right? So these are what you need to have to load this kind of cartridge. Error's Gone bullet molds. Okay, so I got a lot of room in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in some cream of wheat, just as a filler. It's just neutral. All right. I'm just going to put enough in to take up the space on the heel. All right, now we're going to glue the bullet in. Now I prefer to use Elmer's glue instead of the stick glue for this. And I think it has better tack than the stick glue, and you're really going to need the tack, because this is my other issue with this kit, and there's nothing I can do about this. One of the beauties of this is that it tapers and the mouth is wide, because with these parallel-sided cases made to the right size, seating these bullets without rolling the edge of the case, very difficult. Right, this is easy because the case mouth is bigger. So the bullet goes right in. Right in. Perfect. Now, here's a problem. The bullet goes right in, but this mouth is so big that it's actually hard to get the glue to stick, to glue the bullet down. You have to hold it for quite a while. I'm going to end up with some wrinkles over here, because that case mouth is probably a couple of thousandths bigger than it really needs to be. I would be very happy if these guys could make their former, the mandrel, just a little bit thicker, or a little bit thinner at the top. Now I could probably turn that one down, but to be honest with you, I hate to mess with it. So I gotta hold these a little bit longer than I would like to. But once the glue begins to stick, we're good. Okay, so we've got a finished cartridge that is going to fit the gun. And that is really all there is to it. Now you might wonder what this is for. Well, this is this, but with 20 of them. All right, so what you can do is, once you've got your papers formed up, is you can do a bunch of them. And there's some handiness to this, because I'm finding I really have to manipulate all of the cases, the case mouths, to get them to stick to my bullets. I'm not finding this to be as useful as I thought it would be, and the reason for that is because I'm having to get my fat fingers in there and pick them up and squeeze, squeeze the bullets to them. So you're getting the idea here, right? So I'll just fill those up. I'm still going to make the cartridges one at a time in here, but I can powder them all at one time and then start doing bullets, and that's really the beauty of this. So I'm just putting my powder charges in. So I'll let you run through these a little bit faster. These are all the tubes I had made up in advance. Typically, I would be making enough to use every hole in this block. And same deal as before, I'm just going to take a bullet, put a little glue on the base, and pop it in. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry, and we will be in business. Overall, how do I rate this? Well, I rate this thumbs up because I'm going to use it. And I recommend it to anybody who doesn't want to go through the hassle of making all of their own equipment to make Sharps cartridges. This makes a fine one, and you saw them going off. So, I hope you liked this. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll subscribe, because what's coming up next is I'm going to take that Sharps to the range with all my paper cartridges, and I'm going to sight it in. And that's going to look something like this. Alright, 3 for 3. So, if you don't want to miss that and all the other great black powder content that'll be coming up on the channel, right, hit that subscribe button. And tell us how you like this video. We love your comments. I try to answer as many as I can. So, you can find more black powder info on MikeBeliveau.com. And if you want to support us on Patreon, that'll be great. We'll put the links down below, like always. In the meantime, I'll see you next week. Bye. Okay, as promised, here's why I've got that big old Band-Aid on my face. As a lot of you know, I've been shaving with a straight razor for about 2 years now. And it started off as a lark, became a mission, and now it's just a way of life. So, I've got a dog. His name is Axel. And Axel's been my buddy for about 10 years now. But unfortunately, he's got kind of bad hip dysplasia, so we can't let him go upstairs to the second floor where the bedrooms are. He gets upstairs okay, but he has trouble coming down those stairs, a lot of trouble. And we just don't want an injury. So he has to stay downstairs while I'm upstairs shaving and showering and all that stuff. But he's a smart guy, and sometimes he can defeat the gate that we have set up to keep him downstairs. And that's what happened the other day. So I was busy shaving my face when, much to my surprise, a cold nose poked me in the butt. And basically, you can guess what happened at that point. There was blood all over the place. So that's why I've got that Band-Aid on my face. Thank you, Axel.